Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. For today's video I thought I would do the recent What's Your Number tag. I first seen this tag on Makeup Molly's channel, which I will link below. In her video she did credit the tag to, I believe it was a Christina Brooke's. If I can get hold of the link to her video I will put that in the description box as well, but I thought this was a really fun tag to do, and it's basically looking at all of the eyeshadow palettes that you've purchased in 2018 and saying what's your number. So when I had a look through my collection I pulled at ones obviously I knew that I'd recently bought, so we're in 2018. Then as it got to over 6 months ago it got a bit hazy and I had to start checking emails for confirmation of dates of things, because there's palettes here that I thought I'd had for longer than a year but apparently not. When I initially did the pull out I thought I had 10 eyeshadow palettes, which I thought was great because then I could do a top 5 bottom 5. When I in fact looked into it further I found a couple of sneaky January purchases, so my final number is actually 12. I did want to still kind of stick to the top 5 bottom 5 format, and looking at the palettes as to how I do rate them, I have managed to stick them into top 6, bottom 6. Some of the ones in the bottom 6 are only just about there because they're not necessarily bad palettes, but if I did have to label them I would put them in my bottom 6. So what I will probably do is go through the bottom 6 first so that we can end on a high note with the top 6. I've actually just realised I have purchased a 13th palette for the year. I put the order in literally on the 31st of December, so it hasn't quite arrived at the point I'm filming this, but it is technically a 2018 purchase. But obviously as it hasn't arrived and I haven't tested it, I haven't fully included it in this video, but thought I should mention it, and that is the BH Cosmetics Weekend Festival palette. So technically my number is 13, unless I've forgotten something. So on to the bottom 6 palettes. The first one to mention is the Colourpop Ooh La La palette, which is one of my more recent purchases. I have tried this an awful lot since I purchased it because the first couple of times I tried it I didn't like it. I did want to give it a fair shot, so I have used it quite a few times. It is a very pink heavy palette, which is what I was looking for as I am really into my pinks at the moment, and also my purples. These two shades here are a bit patchy and they do require quite a bit of work. This shade here is extremely crumbly and just completely goes everywhere. You end up with glitter all over your face, and the rest of them aren't as pigmented as I expected. I don't necessarily mind that, especially with the kind of brighter shades here, but they're not very easy to build up. It does take a lot of work. This shade here is probably one of my favourites in the palette because it is a really pretty gold, but I probably have this gold 3 times over in other palettes that I have, so it's not kind of worth it for that palette. So I would say out of all the ones I have here, this is probably my least favourite that I purchased last year, which is a shame because one of my ones in my favourite pile, I did love the Colourpop formula, but this one just wasn't for me. Then we have a little quad here from Wet n Wild. This is the Petalette palette. And this is one I purchased when I was starting to get into my pinks and purple phase. I wanted to purchase a cheaper palette just to give the colours a go on my eyes to see how I felt about them. But I was kind of let down by this one. I have purchased previous Wet n Wild palettes and have really enjoyed using them. I have the Trio in the old formula. Really love that palette, but I just did not find this performs very well. This brow bone here I find is a little bit chunky and is a bit patchy. This transition shade isn't as pigmented as it looks in the pan and does require quite a bit of work. Again, not necessarily a problem. This darker plum shade here is quite patchy, and this shade here again doesn't have much pigmentation to it. It is just more of a shimmer as opposed to the sort of pearlescent pink it appears in the pan. So it's not a bad palette for the price I paid. I'm not expecting the world when I do only pay a couple of pounds, but I was quite disappointed based on previous Wet n Wild palettes that I've tried. Then we have this e.l.f. Mad for Mattes eyeshadow palette. And this is the Holy Smokes. I am a shimmer girl. I do really like the shimmers. I don't very often do an all matte look, but when I first got this I did enjoy using it. I don't know if you can see it, it's quite dusty because I just haven't reached for it for a while. I mainly was using it for these green and blue shades and this warm terracotta colour because they were my favourite shades out of the palette. But now, because I have that shade about 4 times over, I do have a couple of other blues and greens in my collection as well. I just don't find myself reaching for it. Formula wise and for the price I paid, it isn't a bad palette, it's just not for me, which is why it's in my bottom 6. But I would recommend it if you are a matte person. I'm just not, so that's why I have put it in my bottom 6. Then we have another e.l.f. palette, and that is the Opposites Attract palette. This is one of e.l.f.'s newer releases, and it is one of their bigger pan palettes, so it is slightly more expensive than their previous ones. I think these usually retail for £10. I didn't pay £10, but that's what they do usually retail for, and this one was £15. I think for the overall array of shades and amount of shades, it's not a bad price to pay. I was just slightly disappointed by it. These couple of purple shades here, I just didn't feel like they performed really well. This green and this black here were both kind of patchy as well and did require quite a bit of work. One of the main reasons I purchased this palette was because I did feel like it had a few unique shades to my collection, being this mustard shade and these few oranges here. And I also did like the look of this grey and obviously those purples as well. I find that mustard colour is not as pigmented as I thought it would be. It does require quite a lot of building up, as with the orange shades as well. I don't mind so much with the orange shades because that is quite an intimidating colour for me to work with, but it takes more work than it's worth, and when they are both on the eyes, even though they do look different to each other in the pan, they do both end up looking the same when they are on the eye. So this palette probably needs one of these shades. Sometimes these two can also look a bit similar, even though this is more of a lighter orange shade, but generally these kind of all muddy together. I find some of the darker shades also muddy together. It is, in my opinion, missing another brown shade. I know it's supposed to be slightly different, but these two browns are both quite dark. Even though this is on the cool side of the palette, this is still quite a dark brown, and this is obviously, it's called warm, and it is, as it says, it is a really nice brown. And then this is a cream up here, it's not a light brown at all. So I did like the concept of it, the fact you've got half warm and half cool, obviously opposites attract, but just generally I was a bit disappointed in it. I did like the look of their new one they've brought out of these. I think it's called the New Classics, and that was compared to being similar to the Soft Glam, obviously half the price, if not more than half the price of the Soft Glam. I was considering purchasing that, but after not enjoying this, I'm not too sure whether I'd enjoy it or not, because the formula on this isn't the best. I know it isn't an expensive palette, but I was kind of let down by this one. Then we have another Wet n Wild palette. This is the Comfort Zone palette. This one is only just about in my bottom 6, and only because I had to label it. It's not one of my most favourite palettes that I purchased this year, but by any stretch it's definitely not the worst. It just has room for improvement, which I feel bad saying on a palette that is literally a few pounds. But I really like the colour story of it. There are quite a few good shades in it. I predominantly like this duochrome kind of bluey denim colour here. This is a nice shade swatching wise, but it is quite patchy on the eyes. It is a sort of plummy brown shade. This one also is quite patchy on the eyes and does cause quite a bit of fallout. This brown does require quite a bit of building, and generally they aren't the longest lasting shadows. Again, I do know that it is drugstore and I'm not expecting the world. It's definitely better than the new formula. If I'm comparing it old formula to new formula, this works as well as my Walking on Eggshells, which is the old formula, but I do prefer the colour payoff and those shadows slightly better. Probably only half of the shades in here that I love, which is why it is just about in my bottom 6, but again, only because I didn't want to have 7 and 5, 6 and 6 just had a better ring to it, but this is just about in there. The final palette in my bottom 6 was a hard one to put in there, but if I was honest with myself and looked at the palettes that I purchased this year, I would have to put it in there, and that is the Morphe Jaclyn Hill palette. This might only be in here for for personal preference reasons, in that I don't reach for it a lot. There are a few shades in here that did disappoint me. I find it quite an intimidating palette, which isn't the fault of the palette, that is completely user error. I just don't get much inspiration when I look at it. I'm starting to lean more towards neutral browns at the moment, and if you did see my recent everyday makeup drawer, you will see I have put this in there for the purpose of giving it more love, because I do feel like it has been more unloved than it deserves. They're not bad shades, I just expected more, but I think that is the problem with the hype. It was so hyped up, this palette, that I did literally expect it to be the best palette I'd ever tried, and it's not by any stretch. Again, it's not a bad palette. I do feel like I am being slightly harsh on it. It has a really nice array of shades, and the shimmers do work really well. A few of them are quite patchy and a bit chunky. There's one down here, I think it is this one. It goes on really thick. I apply shimmers with my finger 9 times out of 10. I do occasionally use a brush, and even when using a brush, I think it's this one, it does apply quite thick and can look a bit crepey on your eyes. These 4 shades in the corner here, I was really disappointed with. They weren't as pigmented as I expected, and also were very patchy. This green here is probably one of my favourite shades in the palette. It is a really nice dark shimmery green. Again, it does require some building up and it does have a bit of fallout, but it is a nice shade. This dark green here I was disappointed with because of its patchiness. I am determined to give it a bit more love, as hence the reason why I've put it in my everyday makeup drawer. Fingers crossed by the end of January I will change my tune slightly, because I did have such high hopes for this, but I do have to put it in my bottom 6. On to my top 6 palettes. I will start with the couple that I've purchased most recently, but I have still had a chance to fully review at this point. The first one is the Huda Beauty Amethyst Obsessions palette. I definitely love this more than I thought I would. When I purchased it, again, I was into my purples at that time. Had only tried a couple, had been slightly put off by trying the purples in the opposites attract and not liking the look of them on my eye, but I couldn't resist because it was on sale, and I don't regret purchasing it for a second. The shades in this are really, really lovely, and they are the perfect level of pigmentation for me. They're not too intense, but they're definitely buildable, but don't take too much hard work. The shade in the middle here is a really pretty pinky purple duochrome type shade, and this one here is a pinky blue glittery type shade. These do have a little bit of fallout, but nothing that can't be wiped away, unlike that glitter shade in the Ooh La La palette that goes everywhere and the glitter won't shift, but these two you can wipe away. This is another nice kind of duochrome colour, which is predominantly purple with pink shifts and blue shifts in it as well. This plum here is a really nice plum and blends really nicely in the outer corner. And then I tend to put one of these 2 corner in my crease, and again I can deepen it as much as I want. I can build it up really easily and create the look that I want. I don't reach for this one an awful lot, and that is one that I probably just apply all over my lid, and it is a really nice all over colour. But generally I do really love this palette, and I didn't think I would love it as much as I do, and I also didn't think I'd make use of most of the shades in there, so definitely glad I purchased this. I was going to pick up another one of these, but if I'm honest, the colour scheme of the rest of them I probably wouldn't get full use out of, so I'm just going to stick to this one for now. The next most recent purchase is the BH Cosmetics Royal Affair palette. I had seen a few people saying that this was a good palette in reviews. I think the last one I'd seen before I purchased it was Nikia Joy. But given the price of it, I hadn't tried anything from BH Cosmetics before. I didn't hold up much hope for it, and I'm glad to say that I was mistaken. This is such a nice palette. It has a really nice array of shades in it. Quite a few of them are unique to my collection. I don't really have a khaki green, that shade. I don't think I have a pink, or at the point I purchased this palette I didn't have a pink that was that shade. And this orange shade here is really nice as well. These 2 colours are really nice for your inner corner for a bit of something different. This one is kind of a lime green shade. This one is a really icy blue and looks really nice in the inner corner. And then the browns and things in here are all really nice. The mattes blend beautifully. The shimmers go really nicely on your eye, and they last a good while as well. I think this is classed as a drugstore brand, and I would say the lasting power in these is great. The pink shade is probably my favourite shade. I do tend to put that in my crease an awful lot and then go in with an array of different shades, and the pink does kind of seem to work. Not necessarily colours you'd think it would work with, but yeah, I really, really love this palette, and for the price I paid, definitely glad I purchased this one. Then we have a little mini palette, and this is the Tarteist Pro To Go. This is another one that I got kind of on a whim. I think it was part of a bundle with something else. Didn't hold much hopes for it, but this is a palette that I love and I do reach for an awful lot. It has 3 mattes and 3 shimmers. These 2 shimmers here are probably a bit more intense than this one, but overall the shimmers are really creamy and blend really nicely. Again, the mattes also blend really nicely. I don't reach for this shade an awful lot unless I'm using it as a kind of base for one of the shimmers. I just apply it all over my lid. And to put this shade here in the crease, and then I put the dark purple in my outer corner and then apply one of the shimmers. Sometimes I'll apply this to the second half of my lid and this one to the inner corner. But considering there's only 6 shades, it is enough to create a whole look. It is perfect for travel, and overall it is a really good quality palette and one of the best I've tried from Tarte. The next palette we have is the You Have Me a Hello from Colourpop. And this was one of my first purchases of the year. I think this was back in the January sales that I purchased this. And this was my first ever palette to try from Colourpop. It has definitely been well loved. This is one that I do reach for on a regular basis when I'm looking for something simple. I don't use every single shade in here, but there are a few favourites that I reach for time and time again. The main one probably being this one in the crease and this one in my outer corner, and plus I will mix with one of these browns as well. This is one of my favourite shimmers in here for all over the lid, as well as this one up here. Say generally it's a really nice palette, great for the price and great quality, and I think if I did purchase another Colourpop palette in the future, it would probably be a £12 palette as opposed to the £9 palette, because I did prefer this formula. The next palette in my top 6 is the Revolution Emily Edit palette. Two reasons why I purchased this palette was I was intrigued by the colour story, and the second reason was mainly just to support Emily because I do really enjoy watching her channel. I will try and remember to link that in the description box as well. And she did such a great job with this palette. I absolutely love the colour story in here. I think it is so unique to anything I have in my collection. There are so many shades in here that are unique to my collection, and I feel inspired when I open this palette. I know I can open it and create a really nice green look with those 3 shades, a really nice purple look with the ones over here. There's also some really nice browns. Midwest and Prayer are really nice crease shades. There's also quite a few nice ones for the outer corner. The only problem I have is with this shade Cheer. I don't know if it's something wrong with my palette. It has like a slight dark patch on it. It just doesn't translate on the eye very well at all. I can get a load on my finger or on a brush, and then I go to put it on my eye and there's nothing really there. I do have to dig into it to get any colour payoff. But to be honest, I think I have that in another palette. I don't tend to reach for that at all. I just kind of skip that shade. But generally all the others, that I don't think there's another bad shade in there, I do reach for all of them. These 2 are really nice in the corner highlights. This cupcake one is nice sort of for the first half of your lid. So are Eve Rose and Belle Violet. Family is a really nice shade for the outer corner. But just generally I do really like this palette, and it's probably the best I've tried from Makeup Revolution. I think this was £15, so it is up their price range for Makeup Revolution, but quality wise I definitely do rate it. The only thing I would say is you definitely need an eyeshadow primer. If you don't put on an eyeshadow primer, the shadows won't last as long at all. You'll still get a good couple of hours out of them, but come the end of the day they will have creased an awful lot and there won't be much shadow left on your lid. But if you wear an eyeshadow primer, you do get a good wear out of them. And the final product in my top 6 is the Balm Meet Matchmaker palette. This is one that I had been dying to try. I'd seen quite a few times. I'd seen some pretty good reviews on it, and then it popped on sale and I thought best chance to buy it. And to be honest, I would have been happy if I had purchased it at full price. I really like the setup of this palette. It is definitely different than anything I have in my collection, in the fact that you've got duos with a matte and a shimmer for each of the duos, but you're not tied to the duos. You can work any shade from the palette and still create a good few looks. My favourite duo is probably the Chavarin duo, which is this pink one here, but I do also like the Snyder duo, which is a darker brown with a kind of antique looking gold, which looks really nice. These greens are really nice as well. The dark green is a little bit patchy, but it isn't too bad once you build it up. And this green shimmer is really, really nice as well. Again, I apply all my shimmers with my finger and never have a problem with them. I do find that you can also apply most of the shimmers with a brush and not have an issue with them, but overall I really like this palette and would definitely recommend it if you can pick it up. So that is it for all the palettes that I purchased in 2018. As I say, my number is 13, just 12 I had to show you now, so that's why I've done the top 6, bottom 6. I challenge anyone else to do this tag. I think it is really fun to look at what you did purchase in 2018 and what you did enjoy as well. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already. Thanks.